And today's election results are, no, just kidding. We are not talking about that, but we get some really cool guests here today. And so I'm going to do quick introductions, and then we're going to get into our normal countdown. So going backwards, let's go Liz, Nicole, introduce yourselves. What are you talking about today and where you're from? And then we'll get to Brad and Bob.
Nicole always goes first.
All right. So hi, everybody. I'm Nicole France, one of the marvelous cadre of analysts at Constellation Research. And today we'll be talking about a few things related to customer experience.
And then Nicole and I always tease that we're the T in Constellation because Nicole looks at CX as the team sport across everything. And I just dive bomb right into marketing, right down the middle. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So hi, everyone.
Excellent. Brad, what are you going to talk about and where you're calling from?
Hi, Brad Killinger, and today we're going to be talking about knowledge workforce management and the power of big data in this ever-changing environment that we're living in. And thank you for having me on. And I'm here just outside of Dallas, Texas today.
Woo-hoo. All right, Bob.
So Bob Stutz, and I'm going to talk about whatever you ask me at the end of the day.
Open Q&A with Bob Stutz.
Yeah.
As long as it's controversial, that's all I care about. It's got to be controversial or I'm not talking.
The right place. I like it.
I'm calling in from a little village called Insel, Germany, which is on the Austrian border.
Woohoo. All right. And we got my co-host, Vala Afshar, and then we'll end out with Elle, and then we'll pop out.
Hi, everyone. Vala dialing in from Boston. Thank you for joining us. Looking forward to our conversation.
All right. I will do the countdown. 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to join us on Twitter at DisrupTV Show. Send Ray, myself, and our distinguished guests your questions using hashtag DisrupTV, and we'll do our best to answer them live during the show. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host. He's the CEO and founder of Constellation Research. He is the best-selling author of Disrupting Digital Business, Create an Authentic Experience in a Peer-to-Peer Economy. He is a regular contributor to ZDNet, Harvard Business Review, and often seen on television, business, and technology news like Fox Business, Yahoo Finance, Bloomberg. Every day he's on TV. In my humble opinion, he's one of the top followers on Twitter at RWANG0. Welcome, Ray Wang, to DisrupTV.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm here with Vala Afshar, as you know, one of the top people to follow on on Twitter. You can catch him at CIOs, CMOs, Chief Digital Officers, CEOs, all follow him for his inspirational advice on Twitter. But more importantly, you're seeing him a lot as well, speaking on business TV, keynotes around the world, very, very important places. And more important, he's an author himself and a great friend. But before we begin our show, I want to thank our sponsor, Robots and Pencils. If you're looking for really good design, if you're thinking about thinking outside of the box, mobile Salesforce development, if you're thinking about customer experiences, check them out at Robots and Pencils. So who do we have today? What's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
How you doing, Brad? You know, we're so fortunate because we get some of the best and brightest CEOs in the world to join us, and there's no exception today. Brad Killinger is CEO of Sapience Analytics. Sapience helps companies understand how time is being spent, how software is being leveraged, and how processes can be optimized to improve results. Today, Sapience is used by more than 90 companies in 18 countries worldwide with over 1 trillion, that's with a capital T, work hours analyzed to date. As CEO of Sapience Analytics, Brad is responsible for execution of company's global strategy. Brad has passion for helping customers succeed and is driving force behind Sapience' aggressive global expansion efforts. Prior to joining Sapience, Bradley served as key global leadership roles at several major technology companies you may have heard of, like IBM, Oracle, and Unisys. You can follow all the work that Sapience is doing on Twitter at SAPIENCE. Welcome, Bradley, to DisrupTV.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me today.
My pleasure. Our pleasure.
All right, so we all know work has completely changed, massive overhaul of how work's happening, and this is the biggest shift since the Industrial Revolution, and then we add a whole bunch of other chaos on top of it. But this is changing but a lot is actually going to move on, and we're actually going to see some permanent changes that actually are solidifying some trends. Let's talk about those trends and some of the things that you've been seeing and share with people like what's going to stick and what might not.
Yeah. So look, I believe that we're kind of in the midst of one of the largest overhauls of work that has occurred in our lifetime. I know in my lifetime, if not maybe ever. The reality is the disruption of COVID. It sent hundreds of millions of workers to home over the last 6 to 8 months. There's no end in sight. I know we were joking in the green room a little bit about the pandemic and when this will end. Who knows? But what I do believe is all of this uncertainty. It is forcing economic uncertainty onto a lot of companies that are really being forced with making some very difficult choices. Business models are being reconfigured right in front of our eyes. I mean, I read the paper and see about jet engine makers that are making ventilators. I've read about shoe manufacturers that are making masks. I think companies have a whole slew of questions in front of them about, which jobs are going to stay remote, which jobs are going to go into the offices, what are they going to do with, in terms of their whole strategy. I've always found it very interesting that prior to the pandemic, every company had these amazing disaster recovery plans, whether it was a hurricane or a terrorist attack or anything in between. But I think one of the things that we saw was that companies had no plan for kind of a pandemic and what would happen if hundreds of millions of people had to go, work at home. And so I strongly believe that moving forward, boards are going to, not just ask to say, hey, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to mandate that companies have these as best practices. And I think that, ultimately companies that are going to embrace this and understand that there's a wholesale change, that they need to rethink about how are they managing their business? How is that work getting done? How do they think about a distributed workforce, et cetera? The ones that are really thinking about this right now and taking action are going to create significant competitive advantage moving forward. So I think this is both a scary time, but it's also exciting time because, our customers, we're watching many of them transform in front of our eyes, which is advantageous, not just for the shareholders, not just for a manager, not just for employees, but I think everybody has an opportunity to benefit that's going to require all of us accepting that and trying things a bit differently moving forward.
Sure. Over the last few months, we've had senior executives from the biggest companies in the world. We had Chief Innovation Technology Officer from Accenture, who has 273,000 people working for him out of the 505,000 company. And he thought there may have been 5 years of culture and digital transformation just in the past 3-4 months. We had the senior executive from McKinsey covering the North America practice said 10 years of e-commerce in the last 3 months in terms of adoption of new technologies. I was delivering a keynote with Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and these are Parliament members who are responsible for oversight for all of the businesses in Canada. And Canada went from 9% employees working remotely in March to 60% in April. Literally 5 million people shifted overnight. My company of 55,000 moved to work from anywhere construct literally overnight.
Yeah.
So we're talking about workforce transformation. We're talking about digital transformation, using technology to help stakeholder success, like you said, employees, customers, partners. How does your company guide clients when you have all these vectors where the velocity, the speed and direction of change is just unlike anything we've ever experienced? How do you do that? How do you guide these companies?
Yeah. It's certainly it's very tricky. I would say digital transformation, in my definition, is really about enabling change, and ultimately about a company's ability to adapt and thrive in kind of the new world. And so, for us, and our piece of that is really being able to understand work activity and organizational capacity is going to be more important than ever moving forward. I mean, so let's just start at the employee level. Our fundamental belief is that employees are under enormous stress right now. They're working longer hours. So when you joked at the beginning of this that we're sitting on, 1 trillion hours of anonymized information, we are absolutely seeing, and in many of our customers, where employees are working almost 2 hours a day more. Now, wow. And that seems like, hey, really interesting. Maybe that's good, but they're doing this in the face, and we have to be cognizant. They can read the newspaper. They're seeing headlines. I mean, people feel that there's job uncertainty. One of the things that we're even seeing inside of our business is around burnout. The facts are you can't keep a team running hot at 150% above capacity. I mean, that was probably okay for the first 90 days of the pandemic. We're still seeing these trends move on. And so, number one, without having the right digital transformation and the right information, you don't even know this information. And you have to be able to understand where that is and be able to then make corrective actions for the long-term health of an organization. I mean, so if you look at what, we're doing at Sapience Analytics, we're really giving, organizations the ability to aggregate thousands of data points, in an automated fashion from every corner of their organization, and turning that into actionable insights that can help, really hit home to understand your employee engagement, understand where hidden capacity exists in your organization, understand where future investments are going. Yeah. And so I'll give you. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to give you, one case study. So one of our customers, who it's an 11,000 person financial services company, it was really, really interesting. Is they, have found that they've had, by being able to take this data and trying to actually cap the amount of time, but to get people focused on the right activities, they've found a 30-minute improvement per employee on kind of the core work that they want. That's translated to them to almost 100,000 extra productive hours per month, and that's an awfully big swing, and that's a trend we're seeing. And the only other one I'd put out there is around software. Is that we're having a number of our customers that when they were in an office and they break down of kind of like, their 100 software packages, what were the top 5? That's flipped upside down of what they're using today versus what they were using in an office environment. And I think you have to have this type of real-time insights, understand where do these investments have to flow. When somebody's at home now, those 5 million people in Canada, what are they using to be effective, to collaborate, to continue innovation, et cetera. So.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And one of the challenges people keep asking about really is workforce analytics. Like, is it new? What is it? Is that ERP? Is that a little bit of CRM? Where does it fit? It's not exactly something that's a household name. So let's talk a little bit about what that is. And I also want to talk about the level of ambience, right? Because when you have to enter information, that usually doesn't work very well. But when things are being captured in the background, that tends to actually do much better.
Yeah. So let me. So first of all, it's not a household name, but I truly believe in the next 2 to 3 years, it's going to be a household name. So there's several prominent analysts, investors, that this is a multi-billion-dollar, industry that's forming. It's forming. Obviously, COVID has kind of accelerated that, for us. Remote work, in my opinion, is definitely here to stay. Remote work and remote management is different, so I think it involves a different kind of thought process in terms of, how you're going to approach that as an organization. And, I often like to use the analogy of the new way of working is going to involve a lot less gut feel and a lot more reliance upon, data and analytics to be successful. And by the way, contingent workforce is growing at a breakneck speed right now. Most companies, it's anywhere around 30%. We're seeing trends that's going to go higher. So that means you're only going to have more distribution of that workforce to all corners of the world. And so, I'd give a great example is one of the reasons when I agreed to come over and run this company, and it's really been a passion project of mine, is you talk about how do you bring, for example, a CRM system to life. And that's one of the major benefits of what we're doing. And so as an major global sales leader at Oracle, I got, used to get so frustrated with 600 people, and you'd go, is the data ever right? And how do you forecast accurately, et cetera? And systems like ours automatically capture that data. Imagine how powerful a Salesforce and an Einstein is when you don't have to rely upon somebody's interpretation. You have the facts in the field. Hey, this is how many times they communicated with the client. This is how much time was spent on phone calls, et cetera. And by the way, think of the hours you free up when you get people out of having to do a lot of manual data entry. So I actually think you're going to see a convergence between technologies like ours and that CRM and ERP world, to where you can have this automated data capture that is just going to populate it. And that's extremely exciting to me, and has been a vision we've been on and going after for the last 3+ years.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Before joining Salesforce, I was a chief customer officer responsible for global services and customer support. So measuring effort and measuring engagement activity to ensure service level agreement conformance levels would have been amazing insight that I didn't have at my fingertips. Or when I was chief marketing officer, understanding how we engage with stakeholders when a lead is at the top of the funnel, going through the 7 stages before it potentially becomes a closed one lost deal, understanding effort along the way and outcomes would be a beautiful thing that I didn't have. So I see tremendous value, especially the blind spot that businesses had pre-pandemic, which was appreciating the power of decentralization. And now we're in a decentralized digital only. So in the absence of a healthy, trustworthy culture, how do you ensure that you have, the best, most effective, like your poster said, how do you not run a business based on guesswork? And so you're a CEO of a large enterprise global company. You have workforce in the US and international.
Yeah.
My sense is you must use your own technology to improve your own productivity and output. Can you talk a little bit about how you manage the business using your own technology and how that translates to your roadmap and how you guide your clients?
Yeah. So we have had, number one on the technology for us is we're religious users of what we're doing. We eat our own dog food.
Drink your own champagne. Drink your own champagne.
Or drink our own champagne. I like that analogy much better. So this has been a very valuable tool for us. Number one is like any company, we're adjusting. Employee engagement is critical. Continuous innovation is everything. Maintaining the culture that we're trying to build at the company, and so by being able to look at that factual data, we know with certainty. I have a weekly leadership team where we're constantly looking at our support, our services, our engineering teams, et cetera, and we're doing that comparison around, are they running too hot? Where are we going to make our next level of investment? Where are the areas where we have opportunities to potentially get more? And so I think that's it's a very fair and balanced approach that's helping us really navigate and make a lot of good decisions. And as we get further into our next generation product right now, some of the really interesting features. So we've invested, heavily in building out our AI and machine learning layer. And so we're now gathering even enough data on our own organization where we're applying those algorithms onto it. Wow. So we can start doing future forecasting. We can start seeing what are these trends, where are we going to have gaps. And so it's very helpful for us. But like all companies, we're going through a change just like them, that, keeping the engagement, keeping everybody motivated. I kind of feel like I'm on a field trip today. I left my house for a rare occasion and came in to do this from our offices. It's empty. We're not going to open until March. There's still an element of work that you can't accomplish over a Zoom, that, you need to go look someone in the eyes and have that personal interaction. So, we're trying the best we can, and we are doing some cool things, which I'd love to point to. Is that, on a weekly basis, I have my own little TV show called Coffee with Killinger. We talk about a huge array of topics from, like the challenges of kids at home during COVID to, family members to, how they're managing with multiple income families to, fun things like Halloween. But We're doing that to really try to keep people feeling connected and to learn about fellow employees. We're doing virtual happy hours, and then we actually have an experiment coming up. So we have a really strong customer advisory board, and they really help us enormously with shaping our company and product.
Awesome.
And so we haven't been able to meet now it's been almost 10 months. And so we're doing in the next, or in early December, we're doing a virtual advisory board, but we're hiring and I'm going to get it wrong because I'm not a drinker, or I don't drink wine, but the Consumali or whatever, the special wine taster, but we're going to ship 3 bottles of wine to everyone's house.
Oh, cool.
And
That's
so
a good idea.
I know someone else who did that. I got from Ray last week. So.
So we're going to ship it in and kind of let them feel like expert wine tasters.
That
and
is awesome.
Try to help keep them engaged with our company because, frankly, we're not too proud to we want all the smart people that will help us be successful that we can find out there. So,
Bradley, you're doing what all exceptional CEOs that have come on our show, and that is you're humanizing the business by making yourself available, showing the non-work side of a business leader. And ultimately what you're doing, and I find that incredible with CEOs that I admire, you're giving your staff permission to recognize that more so than ever before, work-life balance is not work-life integration. I mean, you get up, you're in your office. So to have a CEO have a coffee talk and talk about Halloween, you can't imagine the power of really building trust and loyalty commitment with your team by doing that. So I applaud you for that. That's amazing. And if you ever have outside guests come, Ray and I love coffee. So if you ever need, someone to come in.
It would be an honor to not only to have you guys on and I will follow up on one point is I think it's really important. One of the things that we're seeing from the data is for other leaders out there, encourage your people to take time off. I know they're not going to be traveling to Hawaii or whatever, but I know in our company we are really pushing this because we need folks. Use your PTO. Go spend 3 days and nap or whatever it is, because right now people are working too many hours.
Great advice.
All right, Brad, real quick, just before we go, Plano, Texas. We see a software group coming up there. It's one of the centers where we see other software companies. Tell us what it's like and what the software community is like in the startup community.
So it's a really vibrant market. I mean, we are benefiting greatly right now. We have incredible diversity moving here from all corners of the country. If you look at the population trends, it's been unbelievable. We're stuck right in a center. I've lived here now 13 years, and this used to literally just be a highway. And now I look out my window and I have everything from 12,000 JP Morgan workers to tons of startups. And it's a very vibrant area. And so we're really thrilled. And we intentionally, when we put our corporate headquarters here, we wanted to tap into that talent that we thought we could find. That's awesome. And it's coming. So we've got a really good base of people to choose from and a really high quality of life. So
thanks a lot. Awesome. We're here with Brad Killinger, CEO at Sapience Analytics. You can follow him at Sapience, Sapience. And more importantly, hey, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
You were terrific. Thank you so much. That was awesome. It's analytics is important across all business. And speaking of experience, and one of the gurus of industry, Bob Stutz, President Engineering and Operations at SAP Customer Experience. As President of Engineering and Operations at SAP Customer Experience, Bob's responsible for overall SAP Customer Experience product portfolio, engineering development, and support functions. An industry veteran with over 25 years of experience in leading business applications development for high-profile technology companies, Bob is a believer in harnessing the power of experience economy to fuel business transformation. Prior to SAP, I was gleaming with pride and joy to call him a colleague. Bob was CEO of Marketing Cloud and Chief Analytics Officer at Salesforce, where he led all aspects of the company's marketing cloud business, including product strategy, product management, marketing, engineering, and distribution. Prior to Salesforce, he was corporate vice president at Microsoft, where he was responsible for defining the long-term strategic direction, as well as development and delivery of on-premise and cloud versions of Microsoft Dynamics CRM world. So this guy's touched every CRM.
Where hasn't he worked?
Every company that's in this space. In addition to his decades-long career in enterprise software, Bob led a 22-year distinguished career in the U.S. Army. We salute you for your service, sir. You can follow his work and his vision on Twitter at Guru of CRM, GURUOF CRM. Welcome, Bob Stutz, to DisrupTV.
Hey, Vala, thanks. Ray, great to see you guys.
Great to see you as well,
cool.
sir.
Well, today we're going to talk about Austrian construction and German construction capabilities. Just kidding. We're going to talk about everything.
Don't get me started on European.
I didn't want to get you wound up too early.
At the end of the day.
I didn't want to get you wound up too early, but I've overheard. How's that? But hey, look, there's something shifting, right? And you've been a harsh critic of just CRM, software, companies, right? It's a trait about something that you have. It's really about what can we do to actually change and shake up this industry? And I thought we'd use this time on this platform to say, what's next? Where do you see where we should be going?
Yeah, I think, when look, I think there's too much complacency in this industry, right? I think people become complacent, right? It's sort of normal. You make money and then you sort of think you're on top of the world, and you don't have to think differently. You tend to think you know everything, and you don't search for those answers and for those new products and services that can be built, right? And it's always been the thing for me, right? Is you have to push harder, you have to keep looking, you have to figure out how to do things better and really give customers the stuff that they need in order to run their business better at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So the people that I know that know you, you have a reputation of fixing things. You have a reputation of discipline. You have a reputation of inspiring people to stretch higher, get out of their comfort zone, but be accountable. So there's an element of radical transparency that's used when people describe working for you, with you. And with 22 years of U.S. Army experience, I'm wondering, what leadership traits do you look for when you build your team? And wherever you've gone, you've built a team. And most importantly, people have come to you. You tend to have an incredible, loyal army of folks that work with you and admire you as a person, as a leader. And with respect to those traits that you look for, how do those traits help you shape your vision when it comes to creating a beautiful, meaningful experience, which now you're tasked to do with one of the biggest companies in the world?
Yeah, it's I have to say, it's all about team at the end of the day, right? No one person builds great things. No one person does, those amazing things at the end of the day. It really does take a team. And my belief in team is that, first of all, I typically have a habit of hiring people that nobody else wanted in the industry. I find people that, are rebellious, who, most people will say, oh, they're hard to manage, because I'm a firm believer in rebelliousness, right? I believe creativity comes from being rebellious. Creativity does not come from being a conformist at the end of the day, right? Look at the creative people in this world, right? They were all rebellious in nature, right? Pushing the limits, trying to do things differently. My whole life has been about rebelliousness, right? Anybody who knows me knows that that's a fact.
They have the courage to speak truth to authority.
That's right.
When I define rebellion in terms of business world, do you have the gumption to stand in front of a CEO and say, I don't believe this strategy is the right strategy for our company, or I don't believe the product is as good as we think it is? Just speak the truth. And that's the radical transparency.
And it is about transparency, right? Look, in this life is too short to keep your mouth shut and not say when things are wrong or when things need to be improved, to speak up and say it, right? And it is about transparency, right? And one of the things that I believe in is that I don't believe in holding anything back from people. I don't believe in secret meetings. I don't believe in any of that kind of stuff at the end of the day, right? When you're in like you said, I've sort of been labeled as the fix-it guy, right? And it's sort of true in a way.
By the way, that's the highest compliment. I'm an engineer. Well, I went to school, grad engineer. I'm not sure if I can say that based on my recent work, but to have someone that can stabilize and fix and improve, that to me is a superpower. Not too many people have that capability, in my humble opinion. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it really is about, it takes a special type of team to come in and turn things around. And you need people that can think independently, who can challenge you, right? I mean, I think about some of the great people that have worked for me, Jujar Singh's, Bill Patterson. I mean, I can go down the list,
great.
Param Kalan, who's the chief product officer of UiPath, right? I mean, these are guys who have worked for me for decades, and and there's many more out there who, and I think, it's about teaching people to look, this business is about not accepting the sort of complacency, not accepting the status quo, right? You always have to push harder and harder and harder. And yeah, I have a bad reputation for people think I push a little too hard sometimes, which is probably true. But I truly believe that, as a person, you need to have your limits pushed. You need to understand, in order to be a good leader and a visionary, you need to push. You need to push your limits. You need to know what you can do. You need to know how far you can stretch yourself at the end of the day, right? And look, I this business is a hard business, and in the military, I mean, I had a pretty tough military career for 22 years, and I learned a lot. And and the one thing that even in the military taught me was people who think differently are the most important people. Right. And I mean, look, I've been a rebel my whole life. I dropped out of high school when I was 16. I joined the military on my 17th birthday, spent 22 years. I'm not an engineer by trade. I taught myself everything. Right. Look, it's not about your education. It's not about it's really about people. Right. It's amazing the people you find who may not have gone to Harvard or to Stanford or to, some top-notch engineering school. But boy, those people are really, they can be the best architects, engineers, leaders, right? They think differently. They want to do things differently, right? And so, for me, it's always been about find good people. You find good people, you teach them, you guide them. And sometimes you direct them, but nowadays I've mellowed out quite a bit. So
that hunger in your belly hasn't gone away. I don't.
Let's talk about mellow out here. But look. Okay, so I've wanted to brainstorm this conversation with you. I probably should do it like midnight my time, 9 a.m. your time, right? But the question really should be like, let's go start a brand new CRM company. What would that look like, right? Do we give away the software? Do we capture all the network information? Do we get installed as many places as once and run a data play? I mean, what are some of those radical things that you can't do at this moment? You're constrained because you're within the system that someone should go out and build, because it'd be pretty wild.
Yeah, well, look, I'm 65. I've been doing this a long time. I'm still young.
I like it. He keeps his hair short and he's got the cool. I would have said 45. I would have never guessed 65. So, awesome. Good for you. Wow. It must be the air and the skiing and all the good, healthy diet.
Yeah, and an 11th-month-old baby. That's the other thing that keeps me going.
Wow. You should be gray all over. Wow. Okay, we need a whole other DisrupTV on how to be an amazing parent and keep that youthful energy. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think, look, when I think about the new world of software, right, I don't think it's new ideas. I think it's actually taking ideas that were developed actually decades ago, but the technology wasn't there, right? And people used to make fun of this stuff, right? I remember, guys like Paul Wall talking about fluid software.
Oh, yeah. Fluid software.
Right. I mean, think about it. The concept of fluid software has come to fruition with microservices, right? Now the orchestration of microservices still isn't where it needs to be. There still needs to be better technology. I think Microsoft has come a long way with Orleans and their ability to orchestrate, services. But if you think about the future of software, it's not about applications. It truly is about microservices, and it's about microservices that can be compiled on the fly, right? Mm-hmm. If you think about the old concepts of business process, right? Some of those companies in that day that tried to make business process orchestration, right? Where the whole concept was you had a set of, decomposed services that you could pick, choose, bring them together on the fly and define your enterprise, right? It never came about because the technology wasn't there to do it, right? The technology just didn't allow you. You didn't have the cloud. You didn't have what you have today, right? And even a few years ago, because the concept of federated cloud and how do you go across the federated cloud at the end of the day, right? It's only now that you see the concept of, federated cloud and things being able to work together in a seamless way coming to fruition, right? And so when I think about that, I think about, the future is going to be about services. If I'm the CEO first of all, I don't think you need CIOs anymore in the future because it's about business process. I think, I think what's happened in this industry is there's too much, and I hate to say this because I have many friends who are CIOs, but I think, the days of that have to change. I think which is, you see some companies starting to go to, chief experience officers, right? Where they start to take the experience, right? It's about the experience you want to provide, right? But I think the problem is software is not designed like that. But if you get to a point where you can have, microservices that can be compiled on the fly, can be orchestrated, right? And as somebody who runs a company, I can go in and say, hey, I need to do warehouse management. I need to do distribution. I need to do finance. I need to do, I need to do a lead to cash, or I need to do a lead to opportunity, or I need to do a, sell to order, right? Whatever it is at the end of the day, I should be able to pick and choose from the best. Right.
Yeah. I want a JDA microservice. I want an SAP microservice. I want a CRM service. Hit this. This is all that infinite ambient orchestration we're talking about, right?
That's right. And by the way, it needs to be compiled on the fly, and you need to have you need to have a UI that is dynamic in nature, right? Most UIs still suck today, right? UIs are very static. Yeah, no, it truly is coming to the age of spatial computing, right? Because you need that type of dynamic sort of presentation, right? But I do believe the future is about that. The future is not about the same old shit that's being done today. Sorry, every once in a while I slip on the language stuff,
Okay. We don't have a 30-second delay. We're going straight through.
That's the
22 here.
That's the 22 years. That's the 22 years in the military coming out every once in a while. But it's true though, right? If you think about the future, right? And look, I never badmouth competitors. I never badmouth, right? I think every software has great things to it, right? Whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's SAP, it doesn't matter, right? All companies do some really good things with software. But I think, in the world of software in the future, the walls between companies have to come down. The enterprise is a heterogeneous place, but it's not that today. Yes, it's heterogeneous, but it's a freaking war zone in the enterprise today, right? And who loses in that war? the customer loses in that war.
Customer.
Right? It's not the customer who wins, right? Because you're always pushing what you think is best, right? Even though you may know it's not the best, right? And look, if you think about some of these companies that build software today, I mean, look, SAP, when it comes to back office, ERP, supply chain, right? Amazing stuff, right? Test of time, has survived, right? You think about, some of the other stuff on the front office, commerce. I mean, most people don't know that SAP has the largest commerce platform in the world, 568 billion in GMV. That's almost twice the size of Amazon, but most people don't even realize that at the end of the day, right? And so when you think about it, and then you look at Salesforce and some of the great products that Salesforce has, and Microsoft with some of the things they've done, especially around service and IoT, and as a customer, I want the best of all that, right? I don't want to have a fight. I don't want to have vendors come in and, give me expensive dinners and bottles of wine and everything else to get their product into my company at the end of the day, right? I think that whole system has to change, right? I think because nobody wins in this system. Okay, yeah, people make money.
Well,
people
you could create an
get
app store and
profitable.
charge 30%.
You could. I mean, you absolutely could. But even that model doesn't work too much anymore, right? I mean, those kind of models are starting to die as well, right?
It's amazing when I listen to you talk because, all these pearls of wisdom, and you've built greatness at these companies you mentioned. When you mentioned a Microsoft or a Salesforce or an SAP, you've left your footprint and your legacy in all these companies. At the same time, I'm trying to get the picture of you changing diapers out of my mind. Because I'm like, he's going to be thinking about the future every day. As he's there as a father to a young one, thinking about what the experience will look like 10 years, 20 years from now. So who are your heroes? Are you outside of our industry? Do you look at Elon Musk? Do you look at Jack Ma? Is it even a business person? Like, who do you look for? Bezos? Like, who are the people that you think have the right mindset when it comes to shaping the future?
No, I don't look at, I have to be honest, there aren't many people in the software industry that I look at as being sort of heroes, right?
Sure.
I mean, look, I've been very fortunate in my career. From the very beginning, having mentors like Bob Epstein at Sybase and Tom Siebel and David Schmeier at Salesforce, at Siebel, and and Ed Abbo, who is one of the brightest guys in the software business I've ever, close friend, and
Peter Lim. Oh my God, what a combo! Those two.
What a combo, right? Him and Peter Lim. I mean, those two guys. And
Peter Lim, what a genius, man. I mean, that guy's like 3 steps ahead of you, like 3 steps ago. I mean, it's horrible.
But I've been very fortunate to have those kind of mentors, right? And and when I was at Microsoft, having had a lot of great time with Bill Gates and having the wisdom of Bill and Satya and my friend Mark Benioff, who I love to death, even though I know he's not going to be able to buy any more towers for a while because there won't be no publicity in towers for a while anymore.
Never bet against towers, but anyway, yeah. So,
but
General McChrystal, is it like folks?
No, so I worked for a general for quite a long time. His name is General Edwin Schulz, and he really taught me because look, I'm still a little bit on the rebel side. But conformity's never been my big thing in life, right? And most people,
all evil. Come on, let's be honest.
It truly is at the end of the day. But he always, he taught me that it doesn't matter, right? You can do whatever you want in life. You can, it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what you your past is. It doesn't matter what your education is, right? That you can do whatever you want, right? And it's really about pushing yourself, right? And
it's the spirit of freedom.
And really it is about working hard and enjoying what you do. I have a passion for what I do, right? Every morning I get up and I love what I do, right? Even changing the diapers.
Breaking news. I was waiting for you to admit.
Well, hey, look, I apologize. We're going to have to go. We're almost out of time, but we're here with Bob Stutz, master diaper changer, master of CRM, president engineering operations of SAP Customer Experience. He's worked at every one of the major CRM vendors, and more importantly, a longstanding pillar of CRM.
By the way, what I would pay to go back to changing diapers. My youngest is 10. And I love those years.
Hey,
30 years from now, Mama, it's free. They'll take care of it for you.
My oldest daughter is in grad school at Purdue studying agri-science. And I have to tell you, like, I'll take a baby any days over the problems that.
My oldest turns 18 on Monday, and I'm telling you, I wish I could go back in the time machine. But anyway, she's awesome. She doesn't walk me on my show, so I don't have to worry about what I say.
Bob, thank you so much for being on the show. I'll catch up with you over the weekend. So
thanks, guys.
Take care.
It was great. Thank you very much.
Congrats on the closing of the deal. So.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
What a legend.
Bye.
He
is the legend. And, this is great. We've got 2 more legends showing up. And as everyone knows, this is sponsored by Robots and Pencils. If you're looking for design experience, please check them out.
I'm the robot.
All right.
I'm the
pencil.
The new robot and pencil.
The robot and pencil.
Tracy would love you.
Nicole France, Vice President, Principal Analyst, Constellation Research, focusing on digital marketing, sales effectiveness, customer experience. You can follow Nicole on Twitter. Awesome follow at LN France, LNFRANCE. And we have Liz Miller, Vice President, Principal Analyst, Constellation, focusing on business demands on today's CMOs, the evolution of customer engagement, and the rising requirement for a new security posture that accounts for threat to brand trust. Awesome follow again. We only have people that have awesome Twitter profiles on our show at Liz K. Miller, LIZKMILLER. Welcome, Nicole and Liz, to DisrupTV. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks. Always nice to be here. We always enjoy it. And we get
Bob Stutz changes diapers.
We got to follow Bob first on DisrupTV. Can we just talk about that news item just for a second?
Is that considered cursing? I mean, is that really considered cursing?
I consider it more of like an emphasis. Like, I don't really think,
agree.
But he also kind of killed the CIO, which I'm just like, that happened.
I wasn't expecting that. I mean, there were things I was anticipating there, but killing the CIO was not one of them.
But I think it's kind of like killing the CIO is kind of like the same thing as killing the CMO. Like, you didn't actually kill the person with the title. No. You just kind of killed the title and shifted the person to like a more strategic seat.
You massage the role.
Right. Like, it was like, we're just rebranding the CIO, which
we spoke to Kim Stevenson, who was a former CIO at Intel, and she said there are no IT projects, there are only business projects. And I think that's what he was trying to say. Is that
no, totally dead on.
Yeah.
Like, there are no marketing projects, there are no CX projects, they're customer projects.
Right.
Yep. Or their data projects, or their workflow projects, or their automation projects. Yeah, absolutely.
So for all the CIOs watching, we still love you.
Okay, take a deep breath.
We just got rid of our audience. We're starting new.
It's all right. It's all right. Bob still loves you. But I will tell you, that interview with Bob totally, when Bob said he was in the military for 20 years, I'm like, okay, so this is why Bob thinks the way he does, because Bob thinks left of bang, right? So it's that mindset shift of don't follow the problem, try to look before I'm gonna be Bob. I'm a channel Bob. Look before the oh shit moment.
Yeah.
And it totally makes sense, right? That's how Bob's like I get it now.
I think that's how you get labeled a fixer. I think the best fixers I know have that anticipatory muscle built so that they can build into the design to avoid
the best fixers I know are all in jail. I mean,
even better if you can begin to address some of the here and now problems, because you're thinking about what that future oh shit moment is going to be, or the next 2 or 3 down the line. and you're actually building your way towards solving or alleviating those problems before you get to them.
Right.
He's the
Hashtag
Ray
2020.
Donovan of enterprise.
Exactly.
Right. But that's like, that has been the theme of 2020 for anyone, right? Like the theme of 2020 for CMO has been, oh shit, I got to get it out in front of that. Right? Like, oh, there's a pandemic coming. Oh gosh, I've heard of this thing that might be happening. And CMOs were thinking about it in February. Right? They were sitting there and like in February going, oh God, we better get out in front of this. And the other group that was thinking about it in February was the CISO, right? While the CIO was sitting there like, oh God, how do I get everyone computers? Like, let's be real. Like there was a lot of sausage making when it came to remote work. And so they were just like, how do I get everyone to work from home? The CISO's like, I got to get out in front of this. Like I got to be out. I got to be out in the front line ahead.
I think of first, second, third place in terms of CX heroes of the pandemic, the last 10 months, or CX heroes of 2020, let's say. And I would say for in the US, really that sense of urgency was end of February, March. So it was probably the last 8 months that really changed things radically. Who are the heroes? Is it the chief revenue?
Oh man, there are so many. There are so many of them, Vala, and they're all coming from, in some cases, maybe even unexpected places. But just picking up on what Liz was saying, I think there was a huge number of people who just stepped into the breach, right? And we saw that particularly in customer service. I think there were a lot of organizations where absolutely everybody, up to and including senior executives, were suddenly on the front lines dealing with customers because they had to. They absolutely had to deal with that. And I will say, I think that was a hugely educational moment for a whole lot of folks who have not gotten their hands dirty with dealing directly with customers on that scale in a long time. I think we've seen
So there was a realization that customer service can't be a department when you're in a crisis. Everyone is customer service.
That's it. Yes, that is it. That's what you're doing for your customers. And in a lot of cases, that's been the place where you've been able to maintain those customer relationships. Interestingly, I think sales is another one, because salespeople had to adapt dramatically, right? We don't sell the way we used to because we don't have the same tools, you know, and things have changed, communication mediums have changed, but so has the style. And I think so has the process by which salespeople really get to understanding what their customers' issues are and helping them to address them. And that way of addressing and building trust really quickly is actually a major, major shift that I think we're going to see over the long term as well.
Prior to the pandemic, I had never met a sales professional that closed a 6, 7, 8-digit deal without ever spending in-person time with the client. Like it never, ever. And now I know an army of sales professionals that were able to sell 7-digit deals without breaking bread, golf course, you know, shaking hands, hugging, whatever you do.
But I would also venture to guess that whole group stopped thinking about sales as an individual category of like, I'm going to go do this thing and here is my process and my operations. And I would say that a lot of the heroes that emerged, especially as this pandemic has been going on, have been those that have figured out exactly what Nicole talks a lot about, right? Which is that this is a team sport, that it wasn't just one person. It wasn't just sales that rode in and saved the day. It wasn't just that service rode in and saved the day, or even marketing or security. It's really that people started to figure out who those unlikely animal friendships needed to be and really started to lean into them, right? So we started to figure out that, yes, the lion and the kitty cat really do have to play nice together. Like, hey, let's go get a sloth and it's like, how do we get everyone together, right? Yeah. So I think that, 2020 really taught us that we had to stop dealing with our own BS about cultural don't touch my button. Yep. And we had to actually make sure that we weren't thinking of, could we be the hero? It was, how do we make the customer feel like they're the hero, that they got through it better? And it wasn't by telling them what we were in it together, right? So when you talk about the heroes, it was those marketers that figured out that, hey, let's stop the shiny, go grab every messaging tool du jour of, we're in this together and everyone's life. It was people who lived their brand message and lived their promise. And we're like, no, we're getting through this together. Like, I'm going to strap on the wagon. I'm going to pull everyone with me and who's coming along for the ride. And I think that's where we saw really interesting innovations come through, where marketing started partnering more with service to get to the data because they realized the data is the embodiment of the customer.
Yep.
So that's today. That's kind of where we are today. Tell us what it looks like in 2021. have this conversation 6 months in? What's your guess?
I think we're going to see people looking at their customer data differently. And I think one of the most central aspects of this, it's something Liz and I both talk about a lot, which is not just looking at trends, not just looking at composite personas. We're talking about looking at actual individual people, understanding what individual customers are doing, and building customer groups around where there are like behaviors and similar patterns. And I think it's that understanding the real customer as opposed to understanding a trend line that actually becomes critical. And I think we've seen that this year. We've seen the build up to that, because if you weren't listening to what really mattered to customers, instead of telling them we were all in it together, you absolutely missed the boat. Yeah. So I think what we're going to see next year is much more thinking about that and much more focus on the kinds of tools that help us to do that more effectively. And also, frankly, how to use the output of that insight really effectively.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things we're going to see in 2021 is a shift in how executives think of technology. I think we've been able to kind of ride this wave for the past several years of organizations executives going to a vendor and saying, okay, what do I need to do to transform? What do I need to do to be innovative? I know that certainly happened in marketing. It certainly happened in security too. And that's how we've ended up in a place, especially in security, where we have security operations centers that are so overtooled that they're actually creating more friction and more work and more headaches for security analysts. And when you have a headache at a security analyst level, you're going to have a massive headache on an operations, a marketing, a sales. Like, it trickles down fast. So I think we're going to start to see this real streamlined approach of not what do I need to go and address that new issue. Like, oh my God, ransomware. Oh, like, it's the biggest thing. Ransomware's been around for a really long time, folks. Like, this is not a new conversation. How do we address it faster? How do we actually get so that we can go from the operational tactic to the strategy of driving growth and finding new opportunities? Same thing goes for data. Stop looking in the rearview mirror. I'm going to stop talking about data as this weird, like, apology metric. And I keep thinking of like all the things that our colleague Doug Henshin talks about when he talks about data to decisions. Yep. Right. And I think we talk a lot about data to decisions, but marketers have kind of been stuck in this rut of like data for apologies. Like, I'm going to go look at my data and then apologize for why I spent all that money. And it's like, no, we're done. We're like, done. No more. Stop.
It's about looking forward instead of post-rationalization. Exactly. And that's really a significant but very important shift. But
I think it's going to change that dynamic, but I think it's going to focus in on the tools. And Nicole talks a lot about this. It's the tools about how to get your teams to work the way they need to and they want to work to give that better service to the customer, rather than trying to get your people to learn new tools every 10 seconds.
Sure.
It's about the work environment. It's about the speed. And interestingly, picking up on something Bob said as well, I think it's actually about a different take on relationships with vendors. Because, let's face it, like, going back 15 or 20 years, if you were going to do a selection, an evaluation, it was all about the RFP, all about checking all the boxes, all about the different functional capabilities and creditworthiness and all this kind of stuff. I think we're increasingly getting
and the wine box and the dinner.
Yeah, well, exactly. Coming out to the best steak dinner. But I think what we're increasingly getting to is an environment and a world in which what matters is having the kind of relationship with a vendor that that they are there to support you as you are trying to meet your objectives.
So relationships still matter.
Relationships matter more than ever, but in a different way.
And there's been a reckoning in the marketing to advertising agency dynamic. So that CMO to agency dynamic, where it used to be, agencies, and, some of the ones that are now gone because they used to do this behavior of like, no, trust us. We're spending your money totally well. You need to spend this much money. That dynamic is gone because marketers and agencies have both realized there's a different strategic imperative and there's a different relationship. And if I was to look into 2021 and look at that prediction, that's going to start hitting software vendors really fast because we're starting to see the positive change that dynamic shift has made in the marketer to agency dynamic, that they're now a strategic partner. Now the CMO is going to be looking at their technology vendors and saying, listen, I need to increase revenue. I'm going to do that by looking at my marketing costs, which are very similar to my selling costs. So if I'm going to engage with a customer, what is my MarTech cost that goes into the cost of engaging with that customer? And I'm telling you right now, the vendors that don't know how to answer that question, you're going to have a real ugly 2021.
Oh yeah, I think we're seeing the same thing on the revenue side as well. So anything that's touching revenue generation, what is increasingly being referred to as revenue optimization, all that stuff becomes much higher priority. It's started to already, but I think there's a part of that equation that is very much value for money, and it's not quite the same as a return on investment kind of calculation, but it's how quickly and at what low sort of price point can I get to the core capabilities that I really need to make some significant improvement on my top line and hopefully address the bottom line at the same time.
My last question, I was glued to my laptop for 2 days last week, Constellation Connect Enterprise 10th anniversary. Talk about building relationships, about 300-400 best and brightest, most influential executives across all industries, sharing and learning from each other. Nicole, you had a mixed, extended, augmented reality, virtual reality session. You had creativity, innovation, sustainability, and making customer experience a team sport. What an appropriate discussion based on what we just talked about with Bob. And Liz, post-pandemic lessons learned in terms of density as a business model, the future of cities, extraordinary panel, and then the art of marketing. So you had fantastic sessions, but my question is, what's that one really beautiful aha moment for you based on last week? And I'm sure it's hard to narrow down to one. For me, like listening to Alex Osterwalder was,
always. Let's go to Liz first.
Liz.
So listen, what my aha was that we finally forced, Vala in the networking area of CCE to admit what was going on with the bookshelf and the mysterious disappearance of the lemons. So that was my big aha moment. But from the content, I got to say, hearing the density panel talk about shifting their thinking to a strategy around, rather than looking forward and saying, okay, this is what I need to do to get to my end goal, of thinking about that situational awareness and planning against situation. That was a big aha moment, because I think that's something we have to carry post-pandemic.
And it was travel, entertainment, sports, telecom. So you had not density and diversity all having alignment in terms of their vision. No, that was very extraordinary.
I think for me, it probably has to be cursing for Vala, the next iteration of asking for Vala.
But official hashtag, people.
No, I think for me, one of the things that really came through that was fascinating, and it again goes back to our earlier discussion around the CIO, the changing role of the CIO, and sort of everything is about business process, business capability as opposed to IT. I think there's a really strong view that it's about everybody having a view of the customer and everybody working toward not only understanding what that means, but figuring out how to work together more effectively to make that happen. And, it's interesting because talking to Romain Père, the CIO of Mars, for example, they would not have been able to stand up Treat Town if they hadn't already had a group that was really designed based around customer input, direct consumer input.
Nicole,
and that's
100 sprints in 100 days is what Mars Wrigley's doing. That is crazy. So that is amazing. All right. Well, we are out of time. We could be talking for hours. We'll be seeing you guys live as anchors on the Constellation TV show. It's going to be fun. We'll talk about that somewhere in December. We're here with Nicole France, Vice President and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, Liz Miller, Vice President and Principal Analyst. And of course, you can follow her at LN France and Liz K. Miller. You can follow both ladies and of course, get their insights on Twitter. Snarky.
What? No, never. Stop.
Only
snarky, insightful. You guys decide which one's which. All right. Talk to you later. Thanks a lot.
Brilliant.
Happy Friday.
Brilliant is how I would say it. Ray, so you're the luckiest CEO I know, because you built a great company, and it's because you have great people, and everyone that works for you is equally smart, maybe even smarter. And I mean that, as a compliment.
Smarter. I'm feeling dumb these days. That's the challenge. I got to keep up. So,
you definitely have amazing team. Okay, next week, episode 213, we have Michael Yock, co-founder, CEO of BI Brains with a Z. We have Ed McLaughlin, president of operations and technology at MasterCard. And we have Jason Bressler, executive vice president, chief technology officer at United Wholesale Mortgage. Big brains next week, so bring your popcorn, and it'll be another incredible show of wisdom. Ray, your final comments. This week has been a long week for all of us. Any?
We want your vote but not in that way. We want your vote now. We've got 3 brand logos that are out there on Twitter at DisrupTV Show. Check out the Twitter page. We're trying to update our logo. We're going to do something interesting for the next year. So take a look. There's 3 there. We want to hear your opinions. And of course, definitely check it out. Vala and I will both be tweeting that out over the weekend, so you get a chance to take a look. We're kind of curious what that is. Other than that, have a wonderful weekend and hope every day is not like Thanksgiving.
See you next week, everyone.
Talk to you later.